the big news is out. We know what's going on in the world, and what's going on in the world is that the Commanders have hired Dan Quinn. Hard to think. Listen, they wanted Ben Johnson. I firmly believe that. Ben Johnson, I kind of think, screwed them a little bit. He kind of strung them along, makes the decision that he's not coming as they're flying out there. They were still going to go. They were still going to interview Aaron Glenn. I understand that. But Johnson kind of screws them. Then all of a sudden, Mike McDonald to Seattle is pretty much a done deal. Even if they offered, the Seattle thing was already just finalized or closer to finalized. And so then you look around and you're like, all right, that guy's been a head coach before. That guy's taken teams to the playoffs. That guy's a leader of men and legitimately has a sterling reputation around the league. Coaches, agents, players, executives, everybody that you talk to loves Dan Quinn. And ta-da, Dan Quinn is your Washington Commanders head coach. It's underwhelming. It's safe. Safe isn't always bad, though. Hello, Mitchell.
Yeah, I don't even know that I necessarily would say it's the word safe. What I love about it is that you see from all over the league, we're hearing from different players who have played from him, from Sean Merriman and Chris Chester, about how good of a leader of men he is.
Merriman played for him? I saw that. He commented on my Instagram. I feel like those two didn't overlap.
Doesn't mean that he doesn't know. Doesn't mean that he doesn't know,
Sure.
Dan Quinn, and knows, what folks think of him. And, the fact that people talk about being excited to come to work when he's, the head coach and involved, I think is an important thing. And then as a defensive coordinator, as a guy who's in charge of the X's and O's on defense, you have to be a little bit excited about having a guy that comes in that's creative and puts his guys in positions to win. I mean, look at that Cowboys defense, which we know well. Yeah. We saw Micah Parsons lines up at D tackle, DN, linebacker, inside, outside, all over the field, and a chance to give him the best opportunity to win his matchups. And then going back to his time in Seattle, you look at what he did with Cam Chancellor, who was kind of the first safety who played like a Buffalo nickel, style, closer to the line of scrimmage. So I'm excited that they're bringing in a guy who at least has some creative defensive play calls. And at the end of the day, his success will be determined by who his OC is and how the offense responds with the number 2 overall pick.
If that's the case, then shouldn't they have just hired an offensive person to begin with? If Dan Quinn's success all is measured by the quarterback and the offensive performance, maybe they should have just found a different offensive guy.
I mean, listen, I don't think we expect that this thing isn't going to be determined by the quarterback. They have the number 2 overall pick. More than likely, they're going to take quarterback there. And it's going to be, again, just like it was last year, about the development of the quarterback. And you hope that Dan Quinn is able to, work some of the magic that he worked in Atlanta when he brought in Kyle Shanahan and those offenses were working so well. I mean, you can look at the win-loss record and not like it, but you have to give him credit for the staff that he brought into Atlanta, which included Morris and Kyle Shanahan.
The problem, so you sound more into this than I am. I understand it. That to me is where I'm at. I understand how you arrive at this conclusion, considering the way the cards had been dealt, and particularly the way the Ben Johnson handled things. He was a really good DC in Seattle, and he was a really good DC in Dallas. But as a head coach, it wasn't very good. It was good when Kyle was there. Kyle leaves, and it wasn't very good. And the defenses were never all that good. So whatever was going on in Atlanta, where if he was pulled too thin or they just missed on player evaluations or whatever it was, like, be DC Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator. I want DC Dan Quinn in DC, not HC Dan Quinn from Atlanta in DC. And I don't know that that's attainable. To your point, I am not a always got to go offense guy, because I think you can use numbers to support that theory, but the league also overwhelmingly goes offense. So a lot of those numbers are just going to be kind of like baseless. You know what I mean? But in this situation, when you're drafting a rookie quarterback, when you're overwhelmingly likely to draft a rookie quarterback, I would have gone offense. I still don't know why they didn't call Dave Canales. That's a guy I liked during the season. But, dude, I think Ben Johnson screwed him. Or maybe they wouldn't pay him, but whatever it was, I think that thing went sideways. Slowick stays in Houston. I wonder if you can't throw a boatload of cash at him. I don't know. Maybe you don't want to. And maybe it's important that they're trying to build an organizational structure. I do think it's huge that Quinn to me, is clearly taking this job, understanding of the hierarchy they're putting together. That Adam Peters is the boss and you're the coach. And you have input, obviously, but Adam Peters is the boss. And I think the linchpin here, the conduit to all this is Kyle Shanahan. Adam Peters was with Kyle in San Fran the last 6-7 years. Prior to that, Kyle was with Dan in Atlanta. And now those two are combining forces. When all around the league, everybody says how much they love this guy. I had an AFC coach tell me that he was absolutely the best head coaching candidate available.
I think that's a part of it, though.
I just don't think there's stuff to love.